Okay, I guess maybe we can start. Uh, okay, well, my name is Anatoly. I am with the drivingschoolsoftware.com, and thank you guys for coming here and listening in. So what I'll talk today is a little bit about technology and what kind of stuff and what kind of software and how driving schools can actually, instead of being on a paper and stuff like that, what are the things that driving schools and instructors, especially, because you guys are like, I'm assuming all of you guys are instructors, right? Like safe statement, okay. On the forefront, dealing with students and dealing with parents and all that. Just a little about us. We're basically an approved vendor with the U.S. Board of Education here in Utah. We're the largest software provider for driving schools and driver education schools, both private as well as public, colleges, boards of education, and so forth. We have been awarded contract with last year for driver education scheduling here in Utah, and we actually are currently handling the Granite School District, I believe 15 or 20 high schools that they handle, and so we handle all of our software, I should say, handle their scheduling and student information. Just a couple of things about our service, just so you guys can get a sense. So our system is all web-based, and it's a 24. It's a web-based system. So any information accessed by instructors or by students is available 24/7. And we have ability to custom configure our software to just about any customer needs or requirements, which means that one high school can have one set of requirements versus another high school. But in general, all the schools that we handle within a specific state, obviously they have to meet all the state guidelines and requirements, okay? In addition to scheduling, the software can track like skills, like what is it, and I'll touch on that because it's actually a pretty important part of what you guys do on a daily basis. We can track the skills, we can track paperwork, we can, the parents can have access to information 24/7, as well as obviously, instructors. We have over 500 driving schools throughout the United States, Canada, as well as Saudi Arabia. Fun fact is 3 years ago when, Saudi Arabia, they allowed women to drive. We were the first management software for driving schools. They entered that market. We helped local universities start training women how to become new drivers. It was an incredible experience. Actually, I was just there in December, and it's unbelievable. How people here take for granted a driver's license. Over there, women cannot get a driver's license. And so when that came to be, it was incredible, like demand and everybody wanted to get it. So we were there to help the universities as well as the private driving schools. It was actually quite exciting about that. Like I said, we have roughly 500 schools. We have, we've grown as a business over the years. These are some of our marquee customers that we handle. We handle small schools, we handle extremely large schools, and anything in between. And again, we are a technology company. I don't know anything about education, just to be clear. But what we like to do is we like to bring technology to simplify instructors' life, to simplify students' life, and try to connect everybody together so that you guys can properly train students, because I'm sure that's not an easy job, So today we'll kind of discuss a couple of things, okay? One is like parent engagement. Second is the use of the artificial intelligence as a potential way to talk to students and to educate students. And I will specifically talk about that as well. I'll talk a little bit about micro lessons. A lot of things that I'll present today, some of the things I'll present today, it's actually already being applied, not just in Utah, but like in other parts of the country. And we get a lot of feedback from parents, from schools, from instructors, like what are their challenges, you know? And then we try to basically say, okay, here's a problem. How do we try to resolve it, or at least get enough to get to the resolution? Sometimes problems you can't solve a problem, but maybe you can kind of always strive towards the resolution and betterment of that. Then I'll talk about some of the apps. For example, they have ability to track students and basically what happens with a student after they complete their program. You finish the program with a student, okay. How many of you actually think that students are ready to drive? Not many, right? They should probably learn more even after they have completed their program, right? Whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever that is. That first year is probably the most riskiest in the student's life. That's when they get into car accidents, they injure somebody or injure themselves and everything. So just because they got the driver's license, it doesn't mean that they like know everything. You know, no offense to you guys. I mean, you can't teach them everything. And obviously, every kid learns at a different pace. Every kid has a different way of learning, and that's it's hard, right? And the last thing I'll try to touch on is communication between instructors and students. So we found out sometimes students and instructors talk like using, let's say instructors actually talking to students on their phone, using like they're calling a student. I don't know if you guys, is that allowed here in Utah or not? Like, can you call a student using your private phone to say, hey, I'm outside your house. Can you come outside for the lesson? You do, okay. Okay, so many of them, what's that? Huh? Whatever, but I'm just saying, like, you're using your private phone. You're using a private device to call the student. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm not like off base. Be like, we can't do this at all. I was like, that's a moot point. So I'll touch on that as well, because we have some really funky stuff that we have done. So some years ago, I talked to some schools about parents and that kind of stuff. The first thing they told me, and they did not use these words, they used a different word. They said parents don't care. And I was like, I'm a new parent. My son is 8 years old. I still have some time for sanity for him to get a driver's license, but it did not make any sense to me. I was like, that is illogical to me. How can parents not care? The kid is getting driver's license. They can kill somebody. They can kill themselves. They can injure themselves. Insurance, you know, there's all these different facets. It's a brand new thing that their children are engaged. So how can they not care, right? And I thought about this, and then we came to the conclusion that it's not that parents don't care. It's how the schools communicate with the parents. And so the schools either don't communicate with parents. If they do a lesson, they may never even discuss with the parent, or maybe discuss 2 weeks, 3 weeks later. And I think people's perception changed how they want to be communicated with. Maybe sometimes they don't want to talk to you. Some people don't really, you know, it's a bizarre world, unfortunately, but that's true, right? Some of people are a little bit disjointed, unfortunately, right? And so technology could potentially bridge the gap. It can bridge the gap between how each instructor communicates with a student and how each instructor communicates with a parent. Okay, so when we, the first thing that when we did this, we developed like in-car skill evaluation sheets. That's one of the things that we do. I mean, like I said, it's a part of us, right? So in the past, and you guys can probably, if you guys are, how many of you are using paper to record what's actually being done on like during the lesson? Is it pretty big percentage? Okay. That paper, you can't do anything with the paper, right? And then what happens at the end of the lesson? Do you talk to the parent directly to tell them what was done during this lesson, right? How can the other instructor see what was done if another instructor is teaching the same student? And right, these are a slew of problems when you're dealing with something on a paper. So when we created a digital in-car evaluation sheet, okay, each instructor on their phone can literally, because the lesson is already scheduled in the software and all that kind of stuff, you just basically go and indicate what kind of skills were covered, what was the grade, what notes were added, both public and private notes. Public notes are the notes that parents sees. private notes are the notes that other instructor sees. Okay, so that you guys can then communicate amongst each other without parents knowing, that portion of the. And so when we actually did this, we would, so as soon as the lesson is completed, email is immediately sent to the parent. I mean, that moment, it automatically goes to the parent, whether it's sent as a text message or as a link, they can open it. We found out that 72% of parents were opening that email. We tracked that. We're like, we want to know, are they opening, do they care or do they not care? And so the answer is yes, they do care. And the reason why people didn't think before they care is because they were not being communicated in a proper fashion, proper medium, so to speak. Don't fax me the evaluation because I don't have a fax number, right? And so it was really kind of eye-opening, And so we had this thing for like forever. For a really long time, this the system was used by, like I said, by hundreds and hundreds of schools throughout the United States. And we know that parents do want to be engaged. So then we were like, okay. Okay. So then we said, okay, what are the other things that we can do, okay, to engage parents? So I'm just gonna actually jump to a different slide here. I apologies. I messed up these. Okay. So what are the other? So now parent gets an evaluation, right? What was done during the lesson, and then is the expectation that the parent will then drive with the student, spend some time with the student, maybe further reinforce some of the knowledge that you guys have transferred onto the student, right? But the parent doesn't really know themselves either. They don't know how to talk to the children, right? Especially the teenagers. There's a lot of probably friction between them. I mean, I know personally, I will never teach my son to drive. Like, I reserve myself to that. I couldn't teach him how to ski. I couldn't, like, he's going to go to school. A professional is going to do that job. Like, I'm not capable of that, right? And so what we said, like, okay, but does a parent know how to do hard braking and how to explain that to the student? So if a student has certain deficiency, right, it would be expected that the parent can potentially address those or talk to the student about it, right? But the parents don't know these things themselves either. So we basically approach this thing from technology side of things, from a micro lesson perspective. So if you actually do, so what a micro lesson is basically, it's a video-based 30 to 60-second clip that actually speaks to the parent how to talk to the student. So the parent can now see, okay, this is how I will explain to my son or daughter, I don't know, hard braking or stop sign or the driving distance. I have an example here of whatchamacallit, a little micro lesson that basically was, I hope the people on the Zoom will be able to hear it. Sorry. And just to kind of give an idea. Okay, there's no sound. Did you guys mute or no? Okay, but it's okay, but it's captioned, so you guys can see obviously what is being said. So it's a short lesson, okay, on how to accomplish a specific skill. Okay, so it's not 1 hour, it's not 30 minutes. It's a short snippet. It's a short snippet that could be accessed by parent anytime through their account, through the thing that was sent as an email, and so forth and so on. So, so the point with that is that if a student has a certain deficiency, then you guys can deliver to that specific student a specific snippet of content. And it's not like you choosing that kind of stuff. All the stuff is actually could be chosen by software automatically, depend on how the skills are being tracked and all that kind of stuff. So now the parent gets a very specific content on how and what to say to their child. you know. And I personally believe this is really going to change the paradigm. Does it solve all the problems? Obviously not. But at least it you know, the idea is to bridge the gap between that communication between the parents and students, and to actually help the parents, because I mean, parents need to be engaged one way or the other way. Otherwise, you know, it's going to fall on your, you know, on your shoulders. Let me go back to the presentation. The other thing that we have approached from perspective of, from teaching is implementation of artificial intelligence. So let me just kind of briefly explain this. This is like cutting edge. Fleet companies are using this technology to train their drivers. I'm talking UPSs, FedExes, Amazons of the world. Okay, they have these guys driving around the semis, and they're driving around their vans. Are they driving safe? A few years ago, Walmart truck driver killed 6 people in New Jersey, you know, and plowed into the, you know, the big Walmart sign on a truck. Definitely wasn't a good PR. But aside from that, a lot of people got hurt. And so technology has now progressed enough where a camera inside the vehicle can monitor one's behavior in real time, detect certain unsafe behaviors, flag it, record it, and immediately upload it to the cloud. Now, if you think about that, right, from a student's perspective, not when you guys are in the car, because that has another set of problems or benefits, you know, like good touch, bad touch, and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking when the student finishes the program. Do parents know how the students are driving? And are they driving defensively, and are they properly driving? And if they're not driving defensively, there's actually a video recording of that. Now they can actually talk to the students. They can say, they talk to the child. Say, hey, this is not, you're driving too close. So you're, you're driving, you're speeding, or you're doing this and right. There's no ambiguity anymore because the camera and the video provides actually contextual, situational, not awareness, it's not a word, but they call that like, it provides a situational awareness of why is the student doing what they're doing and how they're actually behaving in the car. And that's, I'm so excited about this aspect of it and what we intend to do with this thing, because we want to be able to reach the students after the programs are completed. The beauty about this kind of and these technologies are recording events inside and outside the vehicle. So it's not just what's happening outside the car or inside the car, but it's both. Because sometimes things are, you know, your decision-making process is sometimes not the best. Let me, I have a video. So I actually have one of these cameras in my car. I didn't want to use any students for privacies, but I have the camera in my vehicle. And if I'm driving too close to the car, it yells at me. It says, you're driving too close. If I'm cornering, so you're cornering. If I'm distracted, if I'm looking away, you know, those are all the kind of events that are literally automatically recorded by the system, and they are flagged. And then, so this is a recording of me in my car with my son when I picked him up from school. So don't judge me. I have a lot of these, by the way. And so basically what's happening, it shows the location of the vehicle. It shows the inside and outside. But this is not continuously recording my driving. It flagged my driving, takes the 10 seconds before the event, and 10 or 15 seconds after the event has ended. So now you're seeing what happened before event occurred and after the event has completed. This is all literally done in real time. It's like 2 or 3 seconds, like, like off, you know. And this type of technology is really now, like I said, corporations are using this. And they're using it because they want to better. And I'm like, okay, what's the difference between somebody driving defensively a minivan versus a student driving defensively? I mean, is there any difference? Technically, I would say no, right? There probably may be some, minor differences, but fundamentally, there's no difference with why one versus the other. So this is another really, like I said, latest, greatest thing that's available that, and many times instructors, we found out, they would like in schools, they would like to know how well their students are doing. So they can get a feedback from us. We tell them, hey, a lot of your students are doing this. And we're not gonna say this specific student is doing this, right? We can say statistically, many of the students are doing cornering is not doing right, or they're like driving too close to the vehicle, or they're being distracted instead of the other. So now, as an instructor, each school can actually potentially adjust their teaching technique to focus on those deficiencies, because you as a teacher have no idea what the student does when they are not with you in a car. And so that kind of information is gold, because that allows you, it gives you again, not to say this person or that person did this, but statistically speaking, how did that work? And how well is how well the students actually behaving in the vehicle? Let me go back. The other side of this equation is also there are apps developed to basically, again, what happens after student completes the program is to basically gamify, basically, they're basically apps. As a matter of fact, one of the gentlemen from TripScore is here, happens to be here, so he should actually speak better about these things. But and I'll give him a few minutes to actually say something about it. But it basically it's an application that they develop that essentially monitors how the student is driving, again, when they're by themselves in the car. And then based on their driving behavior, rewards them for the safe behavior, like financially. The app is free and all that kind of stuff, and engages the student, and again, provides them tidbits of knowledge as they have become a brand new driver, okay? I'll just introduce Bill Bland. He's with TripScore, and maybe he can just spend a few minutes. He can actually tell you a little bit more details about it, because again, I'm not 100% privy on it.
Sure, that's totally. So, hi everybody. Bill Bland. I'm with a company called Meditas Technologies. So we've been working with driving schools for a number of years. Also work with companies like Waste Management, UAP, doing training. And a little while ago, interestingly enough, when my kids were just getting their licenses, I went, holy crap, there's a big problem here. We need to work with new drivers as well. So we started to look at what can we do. We actually went out and talked to driver educators. We talked to somewhere between 300 and 500 different driver education groups in the US. The thing that came out of it wasn't what the driver educators were doing, but more what the parents were doing, which was very little in most cases. So it's kind of like you go for a golf or a football lesson with a professional for a few hours, and then you never practice. You'll never get better. You'll never be proficient at it. And so we really started to look at how do we help the parents, and in essence, help the driver educators to engage. So we started actually building online courses for parents on how to practice drive or supervise with their students. We had such great response from that. We've done educated over 50,000 parents on that. We got so many responses back, and they're like, okay, that's awesome. So you've helped us practice with them while they have their learner's instruction permit. Now what can we do after they get the license, because we don't know what's happening. So we started researching it, and we started looking at how do modern groups, young people kind of engage. And we said, they're all using their smartphone, they're all using apps. Let's build something that's different. So let's build something where we won't give their data to anyone, parents, driver educators, insurance companies, law enforcement, but let's make it so that they can become aware of how they're driving. And so we built this app based on gamification and incentivization So basically how it works is you drive, we have a very comprehensive driver behavior scoring engine in the back end, scores every trip you take. We've actually partnered with corporate partners, safety partners. We put corporate partners pins on the map. When you drive within 1,500 feet of that pin, it activates the pin. If you're driving well, you can now collect that for discounts, contest entries, gift cards. We have actual gift cards in a prize vault. You can level up in the game. And what we're really doing is we're really trying to influence driver behavior in a different way. So we really want the driver to actually be incentivized and actually become a better driver. We've had some really significant and cool effects with that. We've seen a driver increase driver behavior scoring of 14 points, which is equated to close to 10% in fuel savings, for instance. Also, we know the drivers are driving much better. So what we did is we're partnering with driver education groups. We offer it for free. So we'll actually do landing pages for you. We'll do assets. We do videos for you to be able to put this out to your groups. We'll also put money back in your programs, depending on the users and our corporate partnerships. So we want driver education programs to not have to get an extra expense, not have to get a whole bunch of extra administration, but actually have something that just gives back in a meaningful way. And so that's trip score. In the back end, we're collecting anonymized aggregated data. So let's say the state of Utah said, man, we want to find out what's going on with young drivers and speeding. We can actually heat map risk events based on area, gender, age range, that type of thing. We do have drivers between 14 and 80 on the app now across North America. So it's pretty cool. So we can actually heat map that. Now you go, why are young people speeding at this place? You can actually start to put in some flashing digital speed signs or some things that might stop them. And now you can measure in real time, is it making an effect? So we want to work with the driver educators, the state safety offices, the DMVs, and corporate partners. So we all make a win-win-win. So that's basically it. Sorry, I probably went on.
No, thanks. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, what Bill said basically is what we have been doing for the past 15 years, and that is try to really digitize this industry so that it's not so manual, because everything is now, today, everything is data driven. And it really, people's approach, parents' approach to education, students' approach to education has changed. I mean, God knows in 2 years, it has changed with COVID, with Zoom and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it is a bit like nauseating to say the least, and so the idea is that we want to develop, that we're developing, or something that we look, 3-4 years into the future based on what our customers tell us is how to basically more effectively transmit the knowledge. And you guys have, God knows how much knowledge you guys have, right? But they don't absorb it all the time. And in all fairness, many times it's not fair to expect that somebody can absorb. It's a complex activity, right? It's just a lot of moving parts, decision-making process. Some kids have a better decision-making process than the others, right? And so it's impossible to expect that everybody's going to absorb the same material at the same rate and to the same efficacy. And so having these different systems work together, we'll never get to the 100%, but at least we strive for it. We're trying to reach it. I use the mathematical term, you're asymptotically approaching the 100%. You'll never get there, but you strive for it, right? And there's no silver bullet. This is not a silver bullet. This is not a silver bullet. There is no silver bullet in any of this. It's all just like a common goal, I should say, of how to basically have these students become better drivers, because they're just beginning their life. Excuse me. The other thing that we have also done, because our software is not just scheduling software, right? We engage parents and students, and parents have ability to log into their own accounts. Every student has their own account, or they can go and they can manage, they can schedule things, they can upload files and this, that, and the other. But it's also a very effective tool to, again, give another avenue for distribution of information, resources. So again, they can see information that's either very relevant. So we have something called a short video of the day. And a short video of the day, again, pulls automatically out of the bank of videos that we have, right? That's relevant to that specific student based on the feedback and the skills of how the instructor is actually evaluating that specific student. So if I'm a student and I have a problem with stop signs, and the young lady over there sitting, she's very young, I'm sure she already has her driver's license, and she has a problem with hard braking because she has a heavy foot, right? I'm going to see one set of videos, and she's going to see a different set of videos. Why? Because that pertains to me, and something else pertains to her. So now, instead of this being like a broad brush that everybody needs to pay attention to, stop sign thingy or right? Now I'm seeing information that's relevant to me personally. And that's like a personal, I guess, education, which is like the ultimate goal in many of the institutes. I mean, you guys are educators, so I shouldn't be preaching that kind of stuff, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a teacher, but to me, logically, that makes sense, you know? And so like I said, so the students will basically have ability to access video, access resources. Every school, every district, or every high school can create their own resources. They can opt in to use this video. Oh, I don't like this video. Okay, fine. You don't have to use it. That means that not all the students will be able to see it. We have our own videos. So the combination of the resources of, let's say, a specific school or external resources can provide for like a really, really fantastic tool to basically, again, more effectively communicate with students, as well as parents. This here is an example of an in-car evaluation that actually parent receives as soon as an instructor completes a lesson. And what that includes is the list of skills on the left-hand side. I'm just going to jump over here. I'm sorry, the right-hand side is the list of skills, in this case indicated in green. That basically each instructor has evaluated student for that specific lesson, okay? And on the left-hand side is a set of notes that instructor can indicate. And below that are set of micro lesson videos. They're already embedded automatically into this evaluation sheet for that specific student, for that specific lesson. And now the parent can actually see that without going around the world and looking into the book and looking for all these different resources. And these resources could be curated based on what the school wants or based on, you know, some of the partnerships that we have. And again, it's all tailored for each individual school on its own. Excuse me. The other application, the last application of technology is actually not related to teaching, but it's actually related to safety, okay? I asked earlier whether you guys call students and use your private phones. We found out that's a liability. It's a liability for you. It's also inconvenience for the instructors. We work with AAA. I was in a meeting with AAA in the Northeast in Massachusetts, in Rhode Island. It's the second largest AAA in the country. I was sitting in a room with like 20 people, lawyers, instructors, managers, all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to talk about the privacy shield, right? So I asked a question. Do your instructors call students? And they say, yeah. Do they use the private phone? They say, yes. Do you know when they're calling students? No. Do you know what they're saying to students? No. And then I looked at the lawyers. Their face, they turn like white. Like their face got long. Like you can see when somebody's concerned, like it's just the face changed. What they came to realize is that they had no control over the direct communication between the instructor and the student, who's a minor, who's obviously not their child. On the flip side, instructors' phones numbers, private numbers, were exposed to the students. That means that they could receive text messages at 10 o'clock at night on Sunday. They can receive inappropriate messages. That phone number could be shared with who knows where. And other people can call it. It opens like a can of worms, you know. And so what we did, we developed a privacy shield. What a privacy shield does. Now I recognize that you have to sometimes talk to students. You have to send a text message to the student. Why? I'm waiting for you outside. Where are you? You know, and I mean, so what we did is something similar what Uber did. I mean, you guys are familiar with Uber, right? Like, how many of you guys actually took Uber? Okay, so you're waiting for the driver. You can't find the driver. You call the guy or girl and you text a message, right? That number that you call is not their number. The number that he sees is not your number, okay? There's a complete, but you guys are talking to each other or texting. There's a number that gets inserted in between you and the Uber driver. And so the same logic we apply to this. If an instructor who has a scheduled lesson with a student wants to call that student or send a text message to the student, they can still use their phone. But the student will not see your number and you will not see student's number. And if that student tries to call the same number back at 10 o'clock at night or send a text message to the number, it ain't gonna happen because there's no more connection to your phone. So there's a there's a number that gets inserted between your number and their number. And so neither party can see the other's number while enabling the communication between the instructor and a student. And so what we learned once we push that thing out there with our customers, they were so happy because students could no longer call them on Sunday night whenever they feel like it. They couldn't share the information. They couldn't call them for any reason at all, right? Basically, your phone is your phone and it's your private phone, but you can still, you know, some schools don't give out like, corporate phones and this, it's expensive, right? So unfortunately, many times they'll fall on your shoulders using your iPhones, your Android devices, and it's been absolutely like, instructors really like that because it kind of gives them ability to retain their life as much as they can. So I just a couple of takeaways from, and I'll be open for questions after this, obviously, and any kind of questions you guys have. As a technology company, and we've been doing this since we launched our software before iPhone was around. So that's like 17 plus years. We didn't start this thing yesterday. And when we started this, people were still installing software on their DVDs and all kinds of stuff. We stuck with web-based systems and that was the right decision. What I have seen over the years, and I never went to driving school. I never do what you guys do. This is way too hard. There's no way, no how. But what I learned is that a lot of our customers and the instructors are extremely passionate about what they do. I mean, to a fault. Terrible technology, but really passionate at what they do. And what we realize is that this industry and I hate using the word industry, but I just will because it's kind of like, is really right to really digitize the whole thing, to start really engaging students, bring things in a much more palatable way so that you guys can educate these students as well as their parents better. The use of artificial intelligence is, we started just to scratch the surface. And I know some people hate those terms. I hate them too sometimes, to be honest with you. I don't like Google knowing what I do. Face it, they know what we're doing. They listen to these conversations. I mean, it is nauseating, But some of these things, like micro-learning and these other things, like they truly could be transformative. And sometimes it's difficult. Change is never easy. It takes time. But nevertheless, the end result is the safer driver. The end result is saving somebody's life, And to me, as a father, that's worth it. It's worth it taking those steps and striving for it. Just as much as what we do, what Bill does, and many, many other companies out there, it's worth it because they're kids. They're starting their life. So they deserve better from us, and obviously from their own parents. So that's all I have for now. I don't know if it goes you guys, but do you have any questions or
What's the name of your company again?
It's the drivingthroughsoftware.com, yeah.
How much does it cost? How do you?
Well, so this is part of the contract that was, our system was awarded with the Board of Education. So anybody, any school district that wants to use our stuff, they can use it. Yeah, we launched Granite last year. There.
So do you have to bring the district on board? Is that what you're saying? Each district has their own. So you
I'll
have a
be-
contract with
With
Granite?
the state,
With
no,
the state, but Granite's using it, but they're probably paying a licensing fee per student.
right, I forgot what it's like $5 or $6 maybe per student. It's pretty low cost. You know, I'm really not sure how the contract. I mean, we bid on the RFP and we got it, and then Matt Bauman from Granite, he called and he goes, okay, we want all these schools to be on it, and then we set up each school independently because each school is different, somewhat. You know, each school has its own little, you know, idiosyncrasies, and that's what we did. And we actually created a website for the Granite driver program so that it's easier for parents to go and check the, you know, logging into their students' accounts and all that. You know, and the students can register online and they can automatically create the accounts. And then each instructor has their own account so that you are able to schedule your own lessons. You can complete lessons, whether students are scheduling or you're scheduling. It's totally up to you. It's a very, we've been around for a long time. So there's a lot of the stuff that's like really, you know, I mean, it's working really well. It's not just me saying that, but, and my staff is really fantastic because they train a lot of, we train each high school independently to make sure that their setup is done according to their needs. So we can set up your high school different than your high school for your district versus your district. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? We're like 15 more minutes. If you guys want, I can show you sort of like what the instructor portal looks like. If you guys want to see that, what the student sees, or yeah, sure. Yeah. So this is an example of like if you guys, do you guys conduct classrooms in person, or is it online, or is it like a Zoom, or
Both.
Zoom and online?
Online and in person.
In person, okay. So
Some
we
of
have
us just, I mean, like, we just drive, that's all we do, we don't teach the class, we're
okay, that's fine.
at a whole different school, so, I mean, I would be interested in your scheduling, how you schedule, I mean, I like the idea of the feedback to the parent, but I'm not involved in the class.
Oh, that's okay. Whether you use a classroom or not is irrelevant.
It's just strictly
there.
driving these kids.
So if you're using classroom, they can take advantage of that thing and behind the wheel. But if you're doing only behind the wheel, that's fine too. So it doesn't really matter. If you want to allow students to self-schedule lessons, the way that works is that we have a lot of business rules that govern what students can and cannot do. There's a lot of settings. We can literally kind of dial that in for your school, how it works for your school versus his school. And then so when you create your availability, so let's say if you say, okay, my students only drive with me and his students only drive with him, right? So we can have those settings where basically anybody that's assigned to you can't see any other instructor. And then you create availability, and then students log in and they can basically see what's available. They can pick date and time, schedule it. That's it.
That's what I'm interested in.
Okay. And so they have ability to do this thing themselves anytime. Once the lesson is scheduled, they can get email, text message reminders, and notifications. And then each individual school can control when they go out, what is the content of those, all that. You follow?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, on the instructor side of things, because each instructor has an access, okay? What we did for instructors, we actually created a module that's basically more like simpler. So we don't like overwhelm the instructors with too much stuff. So instructors can see their upcoming schedules. Okay, so the upcoming schedule thing is basically future lessons. It hasn't started yet. It's scheduled, but it's not started yet, right? The needs attention section shows the lessons or classroom sessions that passed, but they have not been completed yet. So, you know, you need to take care of that. Like, oh my gosh, I forgot, right? And then when you can also see, for example, how many students you have assigned to you. If somebody assigned you 50 students, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna finish these kids, right? So again, different schools have different processes. The system can literally adjust to every single one of them. I mean, it's like that sophisticated. When you're processing a lesson, okay, you have ability to see basic information about that lesson, okay? You can see basic information about students. If you want to contact that student, you can contact that student via phone, text, or email directly from here. Okay. If you want to see notes from prior lessons, both public and private, you can see that information as well. So sometimes if in a high school where, you know, one student is handled by 2, 3 instructors or whatever, you don't know what the other guy did or girl. So now you can basically see notes from prior lessons. You can also see prior evaluations. You can actually see what was done, when, and what is the scoring. The evaluation stuff is all custom set for each school. Whatever the school says, or district or state, we implement it. Because again, we don't know anything about this, you know. And then once you do that, so this is how you like view information about that student. And once you're ready to process a lesson, okay, then you just, it's like it cannot be any simpler. You have the evaluation items, you have your scoring and your grading, okay? You can select it, you can put the public notes, you can put the private notes for the lesson, and you can put the signatures. And signatures are basically done directly on the phone, which is it's a touchscreen enabled. So you can sign as well as the student. Now with COVID, some instructors didn't like giving the phone to the student. That's okay. So the instructor can sign, they complete a lesson. Next time student logs into their own account, they have to sign for that lesson.
So we might have a teacher that teaches them in the classroom, another teacher that does it behind the wheel, and then another teacher that tests them.
It's
And
fine.
and you just pass that along, and it's all on one.
It's
form.
all there.
It's all there, and you always have a digital copy of it.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's all, I mean,
So the district really needs to sign up for this then.
I guess.
Or
Or the
the
high school.
individual school.
You just have to tell them that's what you want, and they'll do it. Because we have that contract, we already have it available, you know, that's already finished. That was awarded. He's not the award, get some other obligations, but, I know it's a lot. But I